After having a meticulous plan for providing resources or which kind of activities we are going to perform, which kind of resources we are going to take, which kind of ICT platform we are going to use, which kind of learning management system we are going to use. After having a meticulous plan for each and every activity of our course content, then the second step comes in picture, the P, which stands for provide resources and announce activities on LMS. This is the actual implementation stage of the plan which we have made earlier. And here we have to make our learning management system ready with all necessary e-resources and ICT tools. We require a concrete digital environment where students can access the resources, students take on the activities which the instructor has posted on LMS. All these things need to be integrated so that our learning objectives are achieved. So what an instructor can do is he can post syllabus there, he can post learning outcomes there, he can post reading or viewing resources, he can make activities announcement, and he can also post instructions for individual as well as grouped activities so that the students can know in advance that how the course structure is going on. When you are selecting a learning management system, because that is in the planning stage, and today most of the learning management systems are open access, some are of paid version also. But when you are selecting a learning management system, you should be careful about certain features of learning management system which should be there so that your blended learning runs in an efficient manner. A few features which a learning management system should have are managing courses, users, and roles. Learning management system, they may be used to create, uh, you know, uh, professionally structured course content. The teacher can add text images, text, images, videos, PDFs, tables, links, and text formatting. He can post their interactive tests, slideshows. So several things are possible. So you have to develop a professionally structured course through your learning management system. Apart this, you can also create different types of users, such as you can create accounts for teachers, you can create accounts for students, parents, some external visitors, and editors also. And you can also set the level of hierarchy among them. You can also set what they can access, what are their permissions, and how they can use that particular learning management system. If we talk about student, then we can define which content a student can access. We can track his studying process, studying progress, and then we can also engage student with contact tools. We can also give them assignments. So everything, every role should be clearly defined. If we talk about teachers, what teachers can do, they can manage courses and modules, they can enroll students, they can set up self-enrollment, then they can set up the assignment process. So every role is predefined in a particular learning management system, and according to your need, you have to select a particular learning management system. The second important feature is online assessment. A learning management system can enable teachers to create a customized test for students which are accessible online and submitted also online. Customized test means as per the student's level of understanding, which the instructor is able to understand. On the basis of that, he can create some customized test. And you can include several type of questions there, like one line answer, multiple choice answer, drag and drop order, then essay type questions, true or false, yes or no, fill in the gaps, agreement scale, offline task. Several assessment types are there which you can use in your learning management system. Then the third feature is user feedback, because students exchange of feedback is very helpful, not with teachers but with other students also. So teachers may create discussion groups to allow students give their feedback and increase the interaction of the course. It is an instrument which help teachers to improve their work, help identify what to add or what to remove from a course. Uh, they can also ensure that whether the students are feeling comfortable or not, or whether they are having certain problem in a certain area and how to resolve that. So this can be done if we have a proper feedback from students. Then next important feature is synchronous and asynchronous learning. Both are possible in learning management system. If you want to learn asynchronously, means the teacher and student need not be present at the same time, then you can use the pre-recorded videos, PDFs, or a shareable content object reference model, which is abbreviated as SCORM. Or this is generally these type of tools are used generally for on demand or self paced learning. Whenever students need that, they can access these resources. If we want to go for synchronous learning, then we can go for live sessions or virtual sessions or webinars, etc., conferences. So you can have both type of learning tools available in learning management system. The last important aspect of a learning management system is the learning analytics. They often incorporate dashboards. Learning management systems have dashboards where we can track progress of the student or the user. We can also report on key items like what is the completion rate, whether he has completed certain assignment or not, whether he has submitted assignment late, what is the attendance data, what are the success likelihood. So these matrices can help teachers or facilitators better understand gaps in user knowledge, because the next step is understanding about the next step is understanding about learning gaps, identifying learning gaps. So if you have learning analytics, it will be easy for the facilitator or teacher to understand those learning gaps. If we talk about ICT tools, which we want to use in blended learning mode, then there are various tools and systems that can be exploited by capable and creative teachers to improve teaching and learning situations. And in 2003, authors Lim and Tay have classified these ICT tools into 5 categories, which are informative tools, situating devices, constructive tools, communicative tools, and collaborative tools. If we talk about informative tools, as you can see the examples on the slide, these are generally applications that provide large amounts of information in various formats such as text, graphics, sound, or video, etc. So these informative tools can be used for delivering a large amount of information to students. Situating tools or devices are systems that lay the student in the environment where it involved a context and the occurrence of a situation. So these simulating environments are involved in this, and we can create this simulating environment with the help of some CD-ROM. We can create some virtual reality or multi-user domain. Virtual labs are also part of this. So these are the second type of devices, which are called situating devices. The third one are constructive tools, which are generally general purpose tool that can be used to manipulate information, construct your own knowledge, or we can mix and match with other knowledge, visualize students' learning, and we can use for this MS Word, PowerPoint, Adobe Photoshop, front page, Lego, Mindstorm, etc. for these type of activities. Then are Communicative tools, which are the tools that allow easy communication between teachers and students or among students outside the physical barrier of classroom. It includes generally email, electronic bulletin boards, chats, teleconferences. So which type of communicative tools will be more effective? That has to be decided whether you want to have a synchronous communication or asynchronous communication. If you want to go for synchronous communication, then you should use chat or video conferences, which enable real-time communication. But if we want to use asynchronous communication, where exchange of messages or the communication takes place not live but somehow delayed, then there we can use email or electronic whiteboards like that. And the last one are collaborative tools. Collaborative tools of ICT is currently the focus of much interest and emerging as development of new tools that make online collaborative projects a realistic option for a distributed group work. More and more companies are now coming up with innovative tools under this heading that are collaborative tools, and we can use internet for many collaborative activities, like we can have online meetings, discussion forums, or we can have a group working in a single document. We can have dissemination of information online and other tasks also. So these are various kinds of ICT tools, and the variety of tools gives you the opportunity to incorporate various kinds of activities, because since these five headings we have, all under all these five headings we can have different type of activities for the students. So here we can actually implement our plan of blended learning using LMS and ICT tools. Now the third step is scaffolding and support to learners. Now, what does this mean? Scaffolding here generally means instructional scaffolding, giving support to learners, giving wherever they are having problems, wherever they are having some kind of queries, teacher or the facilitator should be there to help out students in their problems. So here the role of teacher turns out to be a facilitator rather than teacher. The teacher's role can be performed via lecturing recording the lectures, but at the time of seeing that video, if some of the student having any problem, whether it is conceptual problem or whether it is technological problem, then the teacher should act as a facilitator. So what the aim of scaffolding is to make the learning student centric, not teacher centric. Actually, it is the support given to a student by the instructor throughout the learning process. The support is specifically tailored to each and every student, and by using this approach, the student can experience student-centered learning, which tends to facilitate more efficient learning than teacher-centered learning. So, if we look about the various research on particular this topic of scaffolding, we will come across several types of scaffolding, but for that the teacher should be trained enough, because we are using blended learning model. So in order to solve students queries, teachers should be trained enough, students also should be trained enough how to use these online platforms, how to use these various kinds of ICT tools. In a certain review, these four types of scaffolding were suggested. First one is conceptual scaffolding, which helps students decide what to consider in learning and guide them to key concepts. Actually, this is the theoretical scaffolding to understand the concepts, to make student understand the concepts. The second one is procedural scaffolding. Procedural scaffolding is nothing but helping students how to use appropriate tools and resources in an effective manner. So here comes the technical help and support to the student, how they can make the best use of available tools and resources. Then the strategic scaffolding, it helps students find alternative strategies and methods to solve complex problems and give a better solution for them. See, when we have certain assignments containing complex questions, and there are several methods of solving them. So, in strategic scaffolding, we can suggest students that there are various alternatives to solve this problem, and out of among them, student can pick the best solution, the best method to solve that particular problem. So, this is called strategic scaffolding. Then there is metacognitive scaffolding. Actually, this kind of scaffolding promotes higher order thinking in among students, and students are able to plan ahead during their entire course of line. It prompts students to think about what they are learning throughout the process and assist students reflecting on what they have learned. So they can make their self assessment, and then they can have some higher order thinking and they can plan ahead in the course. The fourth step is identification of learning gaps and feedbacks. You have to identify certain learning gaps and provide a feedback, take a feedback from students about our strategy, about our course plan which we have made earlier, whether it has been successful or not. So we have to be aware about whether about the progress of each and every student, whether he is on the right learning path or not. So for this, we should have certain quizzes or presentations or formative assessments periodically, so that we can understand what are the learning gaps. We can also have some corrective feedbacks from the students on technological aspects, on conceptual aspects, on resource aspects, whether they are sufficient or not, so that we can easily evaluate the learning efficiency of our the blended learning environment which we are providing them. And for that purpose, we can ask certain questions to ourselves or our team or students previous teachers, that which students need additional assistance, what standards are not covered last year, what knowledge and skills can students build on to succeed moving forward, and what additional professional development is needed for students and teachers as well to be successful. This can be done only through having feedbacks from students as well as teachers. So this is the fourth step of IPSIT model, and the last model consists of testing. And I think the day before you were taught about the various evaluation or assessment strategies as suggested by UGC concept note on blended learning. And I think the recall level test items which we used to give in traditional assessment types is not sufficient in the blended learning mode, and we should go for certain innovative evaluation strategies, as some of them are suggested by the UGC concept note. Like you can go for group examination, you can go for open book examination, you can go for oral examination, or teachers or students can come up with their own idea of how effectively an evaluation can be. So the summative assessment should be of type that our learning outcomes are achieved. So this is the last step. So these are the 5 steps of IPSIT model, but UGC has suggested certain types of essential infrastructure and essential resources, because this IPSIT model is all about implementing blended learning environment in an institute, and for that certain infrastructure and resources should be there, and UGC has specified minimum standards and desirable standards for that. Although these are all things are given in the concept note itself and you can read out from there, but since it is a law, I would consider it as a law, because how can we say that we are going through a blended learning environment efficiently or not is is can be testified using certain parameters which we have set for different aspects of blended learning. So these are the various aspects. If we talk about the learning management system, to start with, you can have your learning management system at least on a shared server for maximum 500 students, and on dedicated server for maximum 1000 students. But if we, as we progress, we can have the LMS on cloud-based institutional domain name, that is your desirable standard. If we talk about ERP, enterprise resource planning, so we can have different kind of modules for student life cycle, like for admission, like for course delivery, for examination, for evaluation, for certification or degrees, and for placement also. So you can start with some of the modules initially, and later you can have a fully integrated ERP with your learning management system. If we talk about bandwidth, it suggests that minimum is 1 Gbps and maximum is 5 to 10 Gbps. Actually, the bandwidth is a critical issue, because the fast, robust, and reliable broadband is always needed, not just for on-site students and teachers at schools or university campuses, but for off-site faculty and students also, so that they can fully and successfully participate in online learning experiences. And in the more basic practices of universities or colleges, like accessing information or communication or assessments, etc. When we come across several online learning tools, web-based rich contents, interactive digital textbooks, ebooks, online assessments, and the increasing dependence on the internet for student and teacher learning will continue to contribute to rapidly increasing flow of digital traffic. And that's why to manage those digital traffic, we will need to have a proper bandwidth. So these are the desirable standards for bandwidth. If we talk about Wi-Fi and campus intranet, you can see that Wi-Fi should be available for classes involved in blended learning. But you can install necessary firewalls, but you should not restrict your students to use those ICT tools or social media by teachers. And if we talk about desirable standard, then your entire campus should be fully connected. All teachers and students, along with the administrative staff, should be able to use Wi-Fi. Again, the necessary firewalls can be there, but you should not restrict your students to use ICT tools, and you should not restrict your teachers to use social media, because here the role of teacher should be, more student centric, what students like. So the social media is a hype among the youth. So teachers can use this type of media for blended learning mode. So we should not restrict our teachers to use social media, but the teachers should be, very, they should remain alert about using these social media platforms, that they are not distracted. They use this media particularly for education purpose only. Then there are some electronic devices or computers, because blended learning mode requires some kind of hardware. If we talk about desktop and laptops, to start with, you can have a ratio of 1:2 if you have some technological or professional program. But if you have some non-technological programs, then you can have a ratio of 1:4. But when the blended learning mode progresses in your institute, then you can have a 1:1 ratio, fully functional, networked, internet-enabled computer labs. You can have it at your institute. Then the data center services, you can have a shared or dedicated secured server with adequate storage space initially. But as it progresses, you can have a dedicated, secured, cloud-based data center to support the blended learning and storage of e-portfolios. E-portfolios, you must have come across. It's nothing but a blend of several, several assignments and online materials of students. So your learning management system is uploaded on a server. So server should be capable of storage of as much as portfolios, as much students are there. Then smart classrooms, one shared infrastructure per 1000 students to start with is recommended. Initially, you can have one shared infrastructure for 1000 students. Then you can have a smart classroom in each and every classroom later on. Then virtual classroom software with recording facility should be there so that the students who are not present in the classroom can have online sessions for that. There should be a studio facility. Initially, you can have a single studio with pre and post production facility for a cluster of 10 higher education institutes on time and resource sharing basis. Then the software such as Camtasia, OBS, and other content development software training can be given to teachers for so that the studio is used in an efficient manner. Later on, each higher education institute can have its own studio. This is the desirable standard. Then what is the software support? Two types of specific software support we can have. One is plagiarism check software because the originality of content provided by teachers or students can be checked through these softwares. So you can have Urkund or Turnitin or better any other plagiarism software. Some of them are freely available, but some of them are chargeable. Again, in some domain-specific software for specific subjects, like you can have ARC, you can have SPSS or CAD or CAL. But what I suggest is you should use as many free open source software as possible because you can use your financial resources for other purposes also, because implementation of blended learning involves a lot of cost, and if you are going through the for the paid versions of software, it will cost us a lot. So initially you can start with various free open source software, and then when you find that these softwares are not adequate, then you can go for the licensed version also. So these are the essential infrastructure. If we talk about essential resources, then again UGC has suggested some minimum standards and desirable standards. If we talk about MOOCs or SMOOCs, then teachers can explore and suggest students to subscribe to various MOOCs. Here, the role of teacher is important because there are several different kinds of MOOCs available, which are freely available for students, and how to pick the right one is to be suggested by the instructor or facilitator to the students. Then one thing should be kept in mind that these MOOCs or SMOOCs are not going to replace the teaching learning activities to 100%. It is not possible that we are removing entire course content from our side and we are asking students to go for MOOCs 100%. It is not possible. What we can do as suggested by UGC, that a certain portion of a course may be given made optional, and then the student may be asked to take a MOOC course in place of that particular course, which is made optional and which has an equivalent credit. So in this way you can start, and then later on the desirable standard says that institutions can ask their teachers to develop their own MOOCs and SMOOCs in the long run. Then virtual lab. Initially, to start with, you can have a one lab for one subject of science and technology, and some virtual labs for social science subjects can also be explored. Later on, you can add as many labs as possible for each subject of science and technology and social sciences also. So to start with, one lab should be there for each subject of science and technology. If we talk about distance and online courses, there is no minimum standards, but UGC suggested that you can take UGC approval for various online and distance courses, and then you can offer to the students by an institute. You can have some collaboration with other courses, with other institutes, which would help in blended learning implementation of face-to-face formal programs. We can have the online version of traditional programs, distance programs, like that. The most important feature is that blended learning involves various technicality, various learning management systems, understanding of various ICT tools, understanding of hardware, then understanding the learning gaps of students and how to resolve their queries. So all this will need training of teachers, trainers, and educators, and UGC suggests that teachers which are planning to use the blended learning mode in their institute, they should have acquired himself or herself or provide training to others for at least 45 to 50 hours in the blended learning or online teaching within the last 3 years. Either he has taken himself a training or he has provided some other people a training on this particular topic. And this type of training can be performed through, can be taken through some FDP, STTP, or FIP scheme. There are ATAL scheme, TLCs, then HRDCs, NITTRs. So you can go through the various courses offered by these institutes, and then their teachers can take training how to use these resources, LMS and ICT tools. Later on, the institute can ask its own teachers or facilitators to become a leader, to become a nationwide popular teacher in particularly blended learning or ICT enabled teacher learning programs. So then they can provide trainings to other teachers in the country or maybe outside the country. So these are the essential resources which has been suggested by UGC. And here I conclude my presentation. And if you have any queries, you can please ask. I feel more happy to answer all those queries.